Yeah, hello and welcome to Change Your Thinking, Change Your Body. And today, my guest is Caroline Zwickson. Hello, Caroline. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm really well today. Welcome here today. Let me read a little bit about what Caroline brings to the table today. As a woman's natural health and nutrition coach with a degree in counseling psychology and years of experience as a life coach for women specifically, it is now her mission to marry life coaching with natural health coaching to support women who are on their preconception and fertility, pregnancy, and or postpartum journeys. Her goal is to get you all the right support on a physical, emotional, and spiritual level so that you can be the woman, the partner, the friend, and most importantly, the mom you want to be. So welcome today. I
Thank
think
you
we
so
have
much.
a lot of a different point of view in how and what you bring to the table as far as it relates to this summit. So what a pleasure to speak to you today. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome too. So, well, let's just get right into it because, as we sit here and I'll sort of, go back and forth with you and maybe even ask you questions that the audience may be asking. So when you talk about, feeling, tell me, what does feeling comfortable in your body really mean? Because I know you
Mhm.
talk about this with women a lot. So,
Yeah, we talk about it a lot because obviously, and you and I were just kind of like talking about this, before we hopped on the video, how there's these key transformations in life, right? Like these moments in life when everything just kind of changes, right? And we mentioned, we're talking about marriage, we're talking about divorce, we're talking
mhm,
about having children, like even going to college, like those types of things where you're thrown into a completely new situation and therefore you rediscover yourself as a person as well, and who you thought you were before
that's right.
suddenly
Yeah,
is different, right? And
right,
a lot of times these can be really glorious and wonderful moments, but a lot of times they can also be rattling and threatening and scary times. And so
right.
to me, feeling comfortable in your body, when we really talk about not just, liking your body in a mirror, but actually feeling comfortable
You
in
are.
it.
Mm,
There's different components, right? There's the physical component, which obviously we can talk about, being free of pain and aches, which are such essential comfort measures, but then also having a certain like feeling of lightness in your body, right? Like where your body just kind of like, oh, I want to move my arm up, and it does without, like with ease. It like just feels
right.
like you don't have to like rev up a whole lot of effort to do that. And then also like a lightness of breath, right? Like, and a lightness of digestion, right? Like this is something that comes up so much when I talk to women about their health, is digestive issues and all of those things that can make us feel so icky and like heavy and just not good in our bodies and not comfortable in our bodies at all, right? And then there is
Yeah,
the
and then it makes that switch, right? We make that switch to continue because I'll have
yeah,
questions for that. Yeah.
yeah. um and then there's the emotional component, right, of like just feeling kind of like grounded and balanced in your body, and in who you are, right? So like having harmony in not just being in your body, but being in yourself, and this goes back a lot to, what I studied in depth psychology, and really understanding your identity and being at ease with who you are, rather than always thinking you should be one way, um, and really you're a different way, right? So when there's disharmony in the body, in an emotional way especially, that can cause a lot of discomfort, and it can also lead to physical discomfort, right? Like I have a lot of clients who feel like a knot in their throat when they get stressed, or when they start to get really judgmental about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They get a knot here, and it's because the heart and the head aren't connecting. You're not speaking from the heart. There's blockage.
Right.
um, Things like that. And then, of course, the spiritual component, your relationship with yourself and your relationship to the world, that can also lead to either you feeling comfortable in your own body and again at ease with the woman or the man that you are, or there's this disharmony between, I think the outer world wants me to be this way, but I'm really this way. And
Mm-hmm.
it's this struggle, right, that creates a lot of tension, and I think a lot of times even disease.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. I know that there's Louise Hay does a lot of work around the body
Yeah.
mind components, like the physical ailments that you have, and
Hmm.
here's the things that you know probably are the causes
Yeah.
thinking about. It's interesting because, paradigm shifts are and paradigms are created through, like we started to say in the beginning of this, through huge things that happen in our life. I don't want to call them traumatic, but some of them are, gloriously
Sure.
traumatic, right? Like getting married, having a baby, and all of that. I think in having a baby, for the audience that recognizes that, or whatever part of the process you're in. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
my kids are all grown, but I was sharing with you, I know when we spoke prior to this, I mean, my oldest is 32 years old and my youngest is now 27, and I could blink how quickly that went. But I absolutely remember how I felt about my body,
Mm-hmm.
about, I mean, it was, you talk about all the pieces, which I so appreciate you saying, the pieces of physical, emotional, and spiritual, because here you are. And I remembered with my first, even, it was like, not only was I feeling the way I was feeling in my body, didn't even recognize what my body just went through to have, like, this
Mm-hmm.
person came out of
Yeah.
me, right? Like, what? But I wasn't in that space. I was
Mm-hmm.
in, gosh, I was 26 years old when I had him. All right, everybody's doing the math now, but whatever. I really say I'll be 59 this year. And so, but I wasn't thinking about what my body was going through to have this wonderful, precious human
Mm-hmm.
being that I'm nurturing, and right, and then having. I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking about, oh my God, how much weight did I just gain?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I gained like 40 some odd pounds. I had been 20 some odd pounds already over that. My feet got like that. And so my head was so in a body image
Mm-hmm.
and not in the miraculous
Yeah.
space of honor
Yeah.
of, I mean, I didn't really say that until way later, how, so how how miraculous that is for a woman to have, to give life like that. And meanwhile, I'm all like, I'm 40 pounds overweight and
Yeah.
my ankles are like this. And seriously, like, to reverse that, I wish I had embraced it all.
Yeah.
So
And
talk
that's
a
really
little bit about,
hard.
you're at different stages with many different women, and I don't know if you're at a stage when you deal with women, how postpartum you go, like how many years.
Yeah.
So what do you
Yeah.
what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's a huge issue for women, especially in our culture, right? Like I mean, any pregnancy magazine or any health magazine, it's about bouncing back into your pre-baby body and like feeling like you did before when your body has fundamentally changed. Like there is no
There is no,
going
you know,
back to the body how it used to
let
be.
me just interrupt you to say, because I would, if you haven't already done this, anybody out there that's either had a baby, thinking about it, or whatever, just curious. It wasn't until I went to a Discovery Channel history, I checked out what my body actually went through to have
Mm-hmm.
the baby, or to nurture the, to grow the baby. And this
Mm-hmm.
was me the whole time.
Yeah.
I was just like a possum stare, like a deer in the headlights. I
Mm-hmm.
could not, to this day, I can't believe that my body did that. And had I known that from the beginning, I would have really cherished the process, because damn,
Yeah.
it, damn is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to let you talk, because I'm still in awe of it. So
Yeah.
go
I
on.
mean, just like if you think about how much has to go right hormonally in order for you to even conceive a baby, right? And then like carry a baby to full term, have a birth of whatever kind, right? And then recovering postpartum, breastfeeding. Like even if I just think about all the different things that are going on, just purely looking at it hormonally, I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh, like not only, oh my gosh, the body's incredible, but oh my gosh, emotionally so much is happening too, because our hormones and our emotions are like this, right? Like they're kind of like one at the same. And so I think that's where also for me, like the mind and the body really intersect, and how we have to have gratitude for not only, oh my God, my body did this, and now my body should look the way it did before, my body should do this, and da 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 da. But there's also such an emotional component in what's happening throughout that entire process. And I guess that's what your whole entire summit is about, right? Like how much of our emotional life and our thoughts and our beliefs about ourselves are actually forming the experience that we are having in our own body.
That's it. And the tape that we play in our head to the
Mm-hmm.
degree of what reality, I mean, sometimes it's not even reality or true, or, we just have this belief tape that plays in the head.
Yeah.
And I think, especially like now what we're talking about, even becoming a mom, and even, the physiology of what that requires in terms of emotion and hormones and what that kicks up. You hear about postpartum depression and all of
Yeah.
that. And to your point about, society and what we think society dictates. So we still, right? We really kind of really framed that up in our head as to what that should also mean. Not that the headlines and the articles haven't really, nurtured that thought, but
Yeah.
but there's that question of, if you have it in your head in terms of body image already, because then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a question of, and this is how I questioned myself, like, when are you going to be happy with any of this? When are you going to be enjoying the aspects of your life? And as it relates to the presence of the body that I bring, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who thinks of it in that detail?
Yeah.
But I think the best time, especially, and I don't know how many parents, moms are out there with that, but I think that just in general, we can all connect whether we are or aren't. Just that reverence of really understanding what we bring to the table as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and as a mom and everything else in terms of the way we think. And I think
Yeah.
that needs a little bit of nurturing. How do you help your clients to that end in terms of that? So when do they admit to you the stinking thinking, I put it, that they have about their
Mm-hmm.
body? Tell us a little bit
A
about
lot of times it's, like I'm having a hard time losing the baby weight. And then we dig a little bit deeper and we dissect all, like, like the negative thoughts and the like really bashing thoughts that women are thinking about themselves, right? Like, especially like add tiredness to that,
that.
right?
Yeah.
And like your
Hungry, angry,
thoughts just
lonely, tired.
spiral down.
The halts, the hungry, angry, lonely, tired, and then I put
Yeah.
stress on there. Anytime any of those components are in there, yeah. And then we're not even kind enough to recognize the fact that you did 9 months, and in
Yeah,
like 9 hours, everybody wants to be back to their pre-body, right? Go ahead.
exactly.
Tell us how you speak to them.
But so for me, it's, again, like looking at this at the physical component, because I also think that there's a lot of things that we can do for our bodies postpartum in terms of connective tissue healing, right? Nutrient repletion, helping our hormones, really supporting our hormones after coming down from this hormonal masterpiece that just made your baby, and like all of a sudden we like crash hormonally and everything changes in just a matter of a couple of days, really, or hours even,
Yeah.
and so there's a lot we can do from a nutritional and physical perspective to support these postpartum moms that a lot of doctors just aren't telling them, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge component, right? Like, I think if we are depleted by nutrients, by certain crucial nutrients, we can't feel our best. And that's a big reason why I even started to get interested in health coaching and women's health coaching specifically, because I was life coaching women who felt so much anxiety, so
Yeah.
much like even like depression, like things like that, And when we looked, like their hormones weren't supported. Their blood sugar was all over the place, They weren't actually nourishing themselves in order to have positive thoughts and feel grounded and feel calm in their body. And so I do think that, talking about the body specifically and nutrition is really, really important. And there's a severe lack of information out there for new moms, right? Like,
Right.
you birth this baby and then you're being sent home with a newborn, and when you
Right.
have your first, which I have a 2-year-old and I'm now again pregnant with my second, but I remember my husband and I standing in front of the hospital being like, wait, they're just gonna let us leave?
We're just
Like,
going with this
what?
piece of paper.
Yeah.
I have like a piece of paper. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bye.
exactly. And like nobody really gave us like instructions, like, well, they gave us instructions for like, like, this is how you change a diaper, this is how the baby should sleep, like
Right.
that kind of thing. But there was really no instruction for me as the mom for how I can really support my body
Recover.
in
Yeah.
healing.
Recovering and healing. Yes.
And I didn't, like, mine, thankfully, like I didn't have to go through a C-section, but especially women who go through a C-section, it's major abdominal surgery. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not counted as such, and so there has to be support from, like a nutritional and from just like a healing perspective for these new moms. Because if your connective tissue isn't healing right, no matter what kind of birth you had, you're not going to feel that kind of like ease and groundedness and lightness that I described earlier, that's so necessary in order to feel just basic comfort in your body,
I
and
want
then
to I want to just say to the audience and to me and to everybody else, it's not our fault. Unless and until you realize, well, let me go into, and there are people out there like that, right? The type A
mhm,
personalities that are like, you need to tell me why. Why do I have to do this? Why should I do that? And how would I feel about this? But to your point, and I think that we are changing to get
mhm,
more of that information based, even in raising a child,
yeah,
the whole other area, right? There wasn't a lot of detail in terms of that and all
yeah,
of that, and we can get off and running on school and da da da. But
mhm,
but but here's the thing, though. We assume, I hate that word. We assume we
mhm,
should know. You're a
yeah,
woman. You got pregnant. You had the baby. It grew. It came out. Here you go. You should know. And
yeah,
really, I mean, if I say it like that, everybody should go, well, yeah, that's right. Well, we didn't know, right? So to your point, I mean, even by baby number 3, I was still like making my way with what I was bringing to the table with myself,
mhm,
the baby and how I felt physically.
yeah,
Because that's the message that I definitely desperately want everybody to hear, because all too often people put that to the side. I did. So I
mhm,
don't, this is so not judging, I put it all to the side, nutrition and sleep and all
yeah,
of that. I mean, I think we get as moms the sleep deprivation. We learn that early. But we don't say to ourselves that absolutely is compiled into the reason why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, or if it's out of sorts.
yeah,
And then the voice that goes in my head and the what I start to tell myself,
yeah,
it just gets crazy. So I want everybody to know it's not your fault, but
mhm,
now when you know better, you do better. So I think we can take a little piece of advice from all of this. so
yeah.
so when
And
you
I see so many women who, like, when I bring that kind of stuff up, women are dying to know. It's
yes.
not that we don't want to know. It's just that there is kind of like a lack of information available, because also, like, on the internet, if you Google stuff, right, like, you become totally overwhelmed and you don't know who you should believe because everybody has different opinions and all
Who
this.
had Google 32 years ago? Not me.
Yeah.
It would have been a book. And I didn't have Google. God bless Google. Let's just God bless Google, right? Because you're right. But yeah, you still have to dig deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be confusing, and not every body is the same. Not every body's inflammatory system reacts the same to certain foods, and inflammation is such a big deal, especially after going through birth, and pregnancy, and then being sleep deprived, being stressed, like all of these things. And so we kind of, I think, also have to look at, okay, what can we control? What can I actually have influence over? That, because sometimes with sleep, depending on how your baby is, you might not have that much control over sleep, but you have control over how you nourish yourself and how you replete your nutrients that are naturally oftentimes depleted in women. And interestingly, actually, they found that the nutrients that women are often depleted in postpartum are also the nutrients that women with postpartum depression are depleted in. And so there's research really shows that there is a link between, you know, how we end up nutritionally after pregnancy and how we feel emotionally. And this is also so important for anyone who wants to have a second baby.
Mm-hmm.
You want to really replete those nutrients before you have a second baby, so that baby number 2 can also get the best stuff, right?
Yeah, no, right. And
um,
that whole nutrient thing, just in general,
yeah.
just in general. And it's interesting because when you are eating, I call it efficiently. That's
Hmm.
what I call it. I wrap my brain around efficiently. Instead of just the haphazard, just throw anything into my mouth. When I'm eating efficiently, and I'm going to say that like that, because I've done some trial and errors, if you will, on some of the foods that I eat. And it's interesting on each cause and effect. I did this whole experiment with myself. How do I feel after,
Yeah.
this meal, that meal, and the other meal versus something different? Because then it becomes a choice. That's what was important to me. Let me figure out Lucia. And to your point, we need to do that more. You and
Hmm.
I may be very different and may be very, we have different needs in many different ways,
Hmm.
especially nutritionally. So I wanted to really, just start from scratch from how I would feel, because then it's again a choice. If I
Yeah.
know I feel really good and on point and not tired and alive and vibrant, and my body is,
Mhm.
I don't have that stinking thinking, because my body feels really good and rejuvenated.
Mhm.
I mean, it really was amazing,
Yeah.
to see that cause and effect.
And what an act of honoring your body, right? By asking it what it needs
Exactly.
versus just kind of like either treating it like starving it or throwing garbage into it or wolfing something down that you actually really like the taste of, but not actually tasting it because eating it way too fast, like all of these kinds of things. So I think the example that you just gave is so beautiful because it really moves us into a space of honoring our body. I think a lot of times people move into like, oh, I have to love my body. I have to love my body. And sometimes love is a little bit too much in the beginning. You can't go from, bashing your body and speaking to it for years in ways that you would never speak to anybody else on this planet to suddenly expecting yourself to be in love with your body, but you can begin to honor it. And through the process of honoring, you're going to build a relationship with your body.
I agree.
And then you can begin to accept it and like it and
Hmm.
hopefully eventually love
And
it.
it's such a great word, honoring. It really
Mm-hmm.
is just such a great word, because when you hear that in general, and I don't, and sometimes, look, it was hard for me in the beginning
Yeah.
because the talk was so long. It was for so long. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was hard to embrace it. And I was disappointed with the fact that I made it hard. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
was I feeling that way about it? I talked a couple of times about this before, and maybe even on this summit series, but, you know, the pieces of really trying to get myself moving forward, and the things that I'm so proud of myself for that are outside of my body image.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, well, what, that doesn't sound congruent to not,
Mm-hmm.
right? It just sounds like who is two different people that just walked in this room.
Yeah.
Somebody that's very confident about what I bring to the world. And then when I talk about me, and so I did this shift, it just wasn't congruent to talk about me in
Yeah.
that way. And I can't, you can't give to someone what you're not giving to yourself. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing that I've, noticed so much over the years and that I truly believe is that you teach the world how to treat you, right?
Right.
And so if you speak to yourself in a neglectful way, if you speak to yourself in a negative way, if you put yourself down, if you're constantly making yourself smaller than you are,
Right.
you know, in your own mind, and you're constantly putting yourself down, you're unconsciously giving permission to everybody else to speak to you in that way too, right? And
That's
so back when I was life coaching only, I wasn't in health coaching yet, I worked with a lot of women who, were dying to find love in their life.
right.
But the way they were talking to themselves, their own relationship was mirrored to them by the relationships that they formed with men. Men always treated them the exact same way that they were actually talking to themselves, right? And
Yep.
so by shifting this internal dialogue, we can truly shift the way we treat ourselves, the way we feel, the way we show up in the world, the things that we do, the things that come to us. We're
Hmm.
starting to be, we can really start to be a magnet for so much goodness and so much beauty in the world if you're shining it out and radiating it out in your own relationship with yourself. And I think for new moms, and this is something I definitely want to mention is, and something I work on with a lot of my new moms, is forming a new mom identity and
Right.
talking about what that means. Like, who are you
Right.
now that you're a mom? How have your values shifted? Right? Like, what do you actually truly desire? And how can you create a life that goes along with your desires and your also desired feelings, to use one of Danielle Laporte's big words? And she's a genius in, coming up with all of those exercises and all of the thinking along the lines of our desired feelings and getting really clear on what those are and how they have shifted now that you're a mom.
Mom with the responsibility.
With
Yeah.
the responsibility, yeah. And I mean, like, for me, like, things that I didn't think were dangerous before, now I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like,
Right.
like things in your life change when you become a mom. And so I think really tuning into who you are rather than expecting yourself to stay the same and stay stagnant and never move out of your 25-year-old body or 19-year-old body or whatever body
Whatever
you want to
age
go
you
back
want.
to.
Yeah.
It's like, it's really important to stay with who you are in the present.
Absolutely. I think if I can say, because the transformation for me came, my kids were a little bit older, but it started when I needed to correct the thinking in my head and lose the weight.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to lose 70 some odd pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about self-care, and my head was, well, I'm a mom. How could I have self-care for me when I have to care for my kids? And when I said it, I went, oh, of course, we always have that image of the mask, and that, everybody tells you about the airplane. And when they drop the mask, they always say, put it on you first. And that's the
Yeah.
image we lock and load. And that is kind of a good image, but then you slowly forget about that. And so so what I did to shift for me to be the right role model to my kids and to get my body in line with a better thinking is I recognized that my job as a mother is to teach my kids to live in the world without me.
Yeah.
And when it was like, this is the dawning. I started to sing, I was getting all mama chaos on everybody because I said, oh my God, that makes so much sense for me to give it a different meaning because even though I would say the words that I should take care of myself first, I was doing everything for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
They were still little, and so when that shift in thinking happened, the doors opened up for me to align myself with a better body. Because now I have to be this role model. That's truly the other thing. I have to be this role model in life for these children.
Yeah. And what more valuable to role model than a mom who likes herself,
Exactly.
who doesn't constantly put herself down, who has a positive self-image.
That's right.
Right? Like if you can role model that to your kids, they're going to have such an easier experience doing the same thing with themselves, And I think another thing, once we allow ourselves to make that switch that you just talked about, we can also receive the support that we need, right? And like you talked about loneliness as a mom, like feeling lonely, right? And how much that impacts how you feel in your body and how worthy you feel that you are, and like all of those things, right? Like we think we have to do it all ourselves. Motherhood was never meant to be a one-woman job. Like we used to raise kids in families and in tribes and with other people around us, right? Like it wasn't just all on our own shoulders, but truly for everybody. Like even if you're not a mom and you're listening to this, allowing yourself to receive the support that you need and desire. Because it's out there and people love to help. I love helping people. Like,
I love that you said that.
Great to help
when you see somebody that's in need, don't you want to like, I'll help you. Like everybody wants to help.
Yeah.
And then I always tell everybody, show them how to help you, because that's, I think, why people hesitate, because you'll say, I need help. You're not specific. And then the people show up to give you the help they think you need. Right. And they're like, well, no, I don't know. Like, stay out of my, and then you figure out, I'm not going to ask for help anymore. So that to me is a little detail that just says, show them how to help.
Yeah.
Tell them what it is that you need help with. And that whole shift. So, sometimes I meet people with, that say, oh my God, that was so easy to start, that it makes sense to change my thinking.
Yeah.
Not so quote unquote easy, but it doesn't have to be hard. You just need to be aware. And then there's the people who are like, oh, stop. That's really not going to happen. And I'm thinking, well, all of the negative stuff that you've been telling yourself, you're getting. No, well, that's not really why. No, yeah, it is. So do you ever find moms, or wherever they are in the journey, what you are specific with in your niche, do you find that there is this like hard, paradigm that's hard to shatter, and if so, how do you help them through it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, I think that there's so much comparison nowadays, right? Like you go to the playground and you see all of these moms who have similar age kids as you, and it's so easy to look around and be like, how does she look? Like, how does she seem to feel? Oh, she seems to have such an easy time. Like her kid doesn't cry, mine cries. Right. Like there's so much comparison, right? And there's so many opportunities to feel like you're not, like, of course, like, like about the body image, that's a big thing. But also like, I'm not doing a good enough job.
Right.
I'm not a good enough mom. I don't, like, my husband and I feel so distant, right? Like I have no intimate connection anymore to my husband. Like, where did my marriage go? Who am I?
Here we go. And it spills and it goes.
It just goes everywhere, right? And so I think and again, like add sleep deprivation,
Yeah.
to that whole thing. And it just all gets so much, like the sand becomes so much quicker.
Right.
And so the first things that we really start to talk about is, like the things, like, first of all, I think just giving moms the space to let it all out. A lot of times these moms just need a release because they're trying to hold it all together so tight that their body is so tense, right?
Yeah.
And then the pressure increases in their mind. And so just giving a space to like let it all out and lay it all out there, giving them a community of support. I run a program called Well Mama, and it is incredible, like the types of women that come together really from all over the world. And you think you're the only one, and you aren't,
So
And so
often.
sharing these experiences, I think women always thrive in community and in sisterhood, and having other women there who are
Yeah.
supporting them, who are going through the same things as them, makes, everything so much easier, and then, starting to take small action steps. Okay, like how can you start to balance your blood sugar a little bit more so that you have more energy and you actually feel, again, like you're doing something for yourself, you're honoring your body. Doesn't matter what it looks like right now, but what are the small things that you can implement so that eventually they become your new normal,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the same thing happens also with your thoughts. A lot of times I use the example of learning a new language, right? Like when you, for example, I learned French in school when I was growing up, and English because I'm from Germany, but okay, let's use English. So when I first learned English, in my mind, I was like, I can't speak that language. Like I can't, like, I was afraid to like say anything, and
Sure.
say it out loud because I thought I was going to do it wrong. I was
Well,
going to embarrass myself,
I
all of
did
this
that
stuff.
with Italian. Yep,
Yeah.
I do. Mhm.
And so the same thing happens with when we're trying to adopt a more positive internal dialogue. At
That's
first you're like, wait, if I tell myself I like myself, I think I'm lying
right.
and I'm not telling the truth and I'm just making things up. Kind of like when you're learning a new language, right? Like you say a sentence and you're like, probably said this wrong. Like I probably didn't do it right. This sounds like I'm, totally messing it up. Like we have the same kind of thoughts. But
Sure.
the more you practice a new language, the more it
It
becomes like the
great
second
analogy.
tongue,
Great analogy. Yeah.
and so I think the same happens with, like, if you just get used to hearing, I am beautiful, I love my eyes. Like start
Yeah.
with the things that are already kind of like natural for you. Like pick
Mhm.
something about you that you like and tell yourself that you like it,
Yeah.
and focus on that. And so beginning this internal dialogue and shifting that over to a different kind of internal language, so much can be done,
Yeah.
And
It's
so I always say, don't rush it, because some people, like, there's a lot of like type A perfectionists, who think that they have to master it all. Like, give me all the tools, and then next week everything's going to be
I'll be
different,
done.
right? Yeah, I'm going to be
Next.
done.
Yeah.
Never going to have to address it again.
No.
And that's just not the truth. I think that this is a lifelong journey. Like for myself, like I've done this work for a really long time now, and really shifting my internal dialogue, which used to be so ugly and so bad and so derogatory and all those things. And I still have moments now where I catch myself and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, did I actually just think that about myself again?
I
And
agree.
the thing is, you get better at detecting yourself, and you get better at making a conscious switch to, no,
Right. And correct.
I do
Hmm.
not accept this kind of internal dialogue, and it's not always that easy. Sometimes it takes me a day to get out of my funk, but I get out of it. I don't let it become, like, take the upper hand. And so I think that's what we need to remember too, is that we don't have to go for perfectionism. We don't have to go and think that, like, I'm going to implement these things and then a week later everything's going to be fine and I'm never gonna have to go back to this. But that kindness and, self-love really is an ongoing journey.
That's it. I think Jane Fonda was quoted as saying this. She says, "We weren't meant to be perfect. We were made to be whole." When
Yeah.
she
Oh,
said
I
that, I
love
went,
that.
I said the same thing. I like that. And I think, for me, that whole perfectionism is a self-worth thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, and, making that shift. So, to your point, we've spent years speaking like this to our own self. So, not that it
Mm-hmm.
has to take that long. You just need to call it out. It's kind of like a bully, like call
Mm-hmm.
out the bully in your head. So,
Yeah.
I
And
like
give it a name. Give her a name.
give her a name.
Make her a person, so that you can
Absolutely.
start to create distance between you, who you
Hmm.
truly are, and
Hmm.
the goodness that exists in you,
Right.
and the voice.
The voice. Exactly. I did a lot of work with my inner child.
Oh, so powerful.
So powerful. And
Yeah.
that's how I started to make this shift in the communication and the conversation I was having in my head.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this little girl who's waiting there and waiting to live. And I was like, I can't speak to her the way I'm speaking to myself now.
Yeah.
And that was a process. That was part of, the spirituality for me also, to connect back, and the trust
Mm-hmm.
that I lost perhaps along the way for that. So, I'm not labeling everything. I'm just saying, you know what, this feels better.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel good. We say what we say negatively,
Yeah.
and we know it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's frustrating, right? In
Yeah.
that inception too. So it's like, okay, well, it's kind of like, well, it hurts when I do this. Well, stop doing that,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think today. So what one thing would you say people can do today to make some changes?
Hmm. So do you want me to answer that question for everybody or for new moms, for example, specifically?
So you can be everybody and hone it back down to new moms, which is your niche.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
So, and I guess the answer would really not be that different for either category, but like take a moment in the morning. This is a really powerful practice that I've been doing for years now, and place your hands on your belly and just ask yourself, what do I need?
mm,
Because we're so familiar with what should I do, right? What needs to get done? All these
why,
types of questions.
why
But
specifically the
really,
belly?
because that's a center of intuition,
Thank you.
and it's also a powerful place for us to practice just holding, because so many of us have so much hate related to our abdominal area and our belly, especially women who have a hard time postpartum, right?
Right.
um, and so placing your hands there and sending love into the center of your body, or into this region of your body, and
Mhm.
asking yourself, what do I need?
I'm doing it right now.
Yeah.
I'm doing it right now.
And
Yeah.
then just listen. Don't try to answer. Don't try to come up with like logical, smart answers or whatever, but just see what comes up. And for the first couple of days, you might not hear much, you know,
Because you're not
and
used to listening.
because that voice hasn't been trained. That voice is not one that's usually on a volume that you can hear. And
Mhm.
so if we want to hear ourselves and hear what we need and hear our intuition, we need to actually create the space, the silence, and the empathy to receive those messages. And so if you can practice that just for like a couple of minutes every morning, asking yourself, what do I need? And it might be really different. Like one day you might feel like, I need like extroverted energy and all of my girlfriends around me. And other days you might feel like, I just need to be by myself
Quiet time. Yeah.
and have quiet time, or go on a hike, or go on a stroll, or whatever else. But really, listen to what you need. And a good way to distinguish between your intuition and the voice is, the voice will argue. It will try to convince you. It
Just
will try to like come up with a million reasons why you should da, 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 da. It speaks like this really
right.
fast. Your
Right.
intuition, a lot of times, is really quiet. It comes in simple phrases.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
speaks slowly. It doesn't try to convince you. It's not arguing two sides of the same coin.
Right.
It's just, this
Hmm.
is what this is. This is a feeling that I want to invite today, or, you know.
It is amazing when you get quiet. I have been practicing that
Mhm.
myself. So I thank you for that. And I think that that's one thing that everybody can take away today. Man, woman, pregnant,
Yeah.
having a baby, you're pregnant now, right? It doesn't matter, that you do need to get into that space, because who else is going to do it? You're not going to get a knock at the door telling, oh, I know exactly what you need now, and here I am.
Yeah.
It needs to come from here, right?
Yeah.
And
And that sets the stage. Like knowing what you need really sets the stage for you to be able to give it to yourself, ask for the support that you need,
mm-hmm.
all of those things. Like if you're not clear on what you actually need and what your desires are, you can't ask for
Ask
it.
anybody else, right?
You can't
And
get it.
be patient for that.
Hmm.
'Cause, like, to your point, we're not used to asking ourselves that yet, so we're not used to maybe hearing the voice and really what it is that
Hmm.
we need. And I found that when I listen to that and heed the comments and conversation I'm having to the good parts, my whole day is different.
Hmm.
My whole day, the whole outlook of everything. There's less worry, there's less
Yeah.
anxiety. yeah, there's less time suck and all, well, I don't have time for this, that, there's less of that.
Uh-huh.
So, and I'm a work in progress always. I'm always, there's
All of
always
us.
something else because it's just the craziness of life these days.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get swept away in that distraction anymore, or even that
Mm-hmm.
excuse anymore. 'Cause,
Mm-hmm.
Time's ticking.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Time's ticking. I
Yeah.
have to, yeah. So, but
Um,
so
here's one final thing I want to add to
yeah,
this, because I've talked to people about this, right? Like the question, like, what do I need today? And then people are like, but what if my body just says I need a cookie, or like I need
right.
a burger or whatever. And so I want you to dig a little bit deeper underneath that and really ask yourself, what is underneath that desire, right? Because a lot of times, for example, like I am somebody who craves sweets naturally, always have, probably always will. And for me, a lot of times like what I really need is sweetness in my life.
Nice point.
you know and so I need laughter with my girlfriends. I need time together in community. I need just like things that make life sweeter. I don't actually necessarily need the cookie is just a shortcut to giving me this like high that my body actually is perfectly capable of creating by itself if I'm giving it the right kind of environment. And
Nice.
maybe it's sweet words, sweet words to yourself.
Yeah, it's really
um,
just taking a different look at it.
yeah,
But again, that's again conditioning, right? It's I
totally.
have a craving. Oh, chocolate. No, no, no. Hold on.
Yeah,
But that's what that's my knee jerk right now. So that's
yeah.
okay. That's okay. We need to be patient with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
kind and loving in that respect as well, nurturing to our, I wouldn't ever think to even do any of this to my children, anyone I
Yeah.
love, my best friend. So be patient with the process of what that looks like too, and then how you take charge of that. And please, please, please definitely ask for help, and
Mm-hmm.
ask for it in a way that's, there is something about the community, people want to help,
Mm-hmm.
and you're giving them something to do with you, and then
Yeah.
like I always call it a tribal. So I said it takes a village and a tribe to live life. But I really mean that, like really what a tribe does for each other.
Yeah.
They just come together in ways, and everybody knows a little something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even if it's for me to be honest, that I can't focus on speaking nicely to myself. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I've brought that out, and I've worked through that with friends, even when they're having a hard time speaking kindly to themselves. Again, it's that
Mm-hmm.
giving a different message too. You have a free gift for everybody today. Would you tell us a little bit about that before we end?
I do. So for all women who are wanting to get pregnant, or who are currently pregnant, or who are new moms, I have a 5-step guide called the Healthy Happy Mama Guide. And we go through, again, like, as you said in my intro, like I'm really passionate about combining health and life coaching. And so the 5 steps are really all focused around creating health and happiness in your body as well as in your life. So
Yeah,
you can
very
download that on my
very nice. And I
website.
suspect we can all pull from that, regardless of where we're at, and
Yeah,
all of that too. So thank you. That was a really
absolutely.
sweet and generous share with us all too. So
Oh, thank you
thank
so much.
you. You were a pleasure. And I know you have, you're in the early stages. I remembered you have a little one, and you're 5 months pregnant, I think you said.
Almost, no, almost third trimester.
Oh, okay. See that? Well,
Yeah,
see, it goes
time's
faster.
moving.
I know. I remember. I seriously, I can remember all of that. Like it goes so fast and so
It
quickly.
does, I
So,
know. And
God
second
bless.
pregnancy goes so much faster than the first because you're busy with number one,
Right?
so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Number one, you're like this. When is he coming? I can't wait. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the second one comes, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Oh God, they get up. Yeah, yeah. You go through the whole thing. I know
Yeah.
it's you know what, frame it up is fun. I enjoy being a mom. I really do. I mean, it's just great. It's
Yeah.
the stages are all different.
Yeah.
They're all
But
out.
at the end of the day, it's the best. It really is.
It really is. It's your proudest. It's some of my proudest moments is that. So thank you for
Thank
everything
you so much.
with us today, Caroline. I really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. And I know that you've gotten a little nugget today, if not one, maybe two, that you can, take away from yourself. I look at this as a gift basket. Put it all in the basket and pull out what you need each day. Yeah, you can see all that. So God bless everybody. Much love to everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.